Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bonsai Escape. Mike here, and today we're going to go over some Procumbens Nana junipers. Actually, you've probably seen both these trees in a few of my videos when I've applied the lime sulfur on the deadwood features. I've done some shari work on both of these in previous videos, but they've and recently, about a month ago, I just trimmed this one down pretty significantly and set its pads, and it's already starting to grow out. So I'm going to reduce some of this foliage mass on this guy, but I'm also going to start working on this one that has really overgrown in the year. So stay tuned and let's see what we can do. So this guy, I'm going to just do a quick little cleanup. I'm not going to bore you with too much of that. There's some long extending tips here, and I'm going to decide if I want to keep those on. But other than that, I'm just going to clean this up really quick. We just did a pretty good trimming on it not that long ago, so she just needs a little bit of cleanup and some restructuring. So I'm going to do that, but we're going to get to the one that's really overgrown. Unfortunately, you can't even see the gorgeous deadwood feature inside here. So I've got to make some decisions about this pad that's been developing. I've let it grow just to help encourage the vigor of this branch, this lower branch. Obviously, it's very healthy, but I do want to expose that deadwood feature inside the entire trunk, because I do think that is a main feature of this tree, and you lose all of that with the foliage. So I've got to make some decisions here, whether we decide to just reduce that completely and make it a Jin, maybe, as well as thin this upper canopy out this side and make some decisions on that. So as I go along here, I'm going to start first by just thinning it out, and then I'll make some structural changes. What I might do is just leave it until fall, until spring next year. I don't want to, this tree was repotted a year ago, so I don't really have to worry too much about what's going to happen in the spring. I'm not planning to repot this guy, although I am planning to repot the big one. So I really want to minimize any more work on it right now. It's vigorous, it's healthy, so we'll do some work on that in the spring. But this guy definitely needs to be thinned out and emphasize that trunk line, deadwood, and start making some decisions on this canopy in front that wraps around it. And so those are what I have to figure out. Hang tight. So in trimming procumbens, the first thing I start with is looking at the bottom of the pad and anything that's growing down. Like these guys I just plucked off, and this starts to help me get a better understanding of what the pad's going to look like. I always work from the bottom, pulling branches, anything that's growing downward like this, off. These guys are all projecting downward, and I'll work my way around each branch structure with any downward growth. Because I do that a lot, you can tell that there's not a lot of it, although the top growth has really expanded. But I've got to do that. I'm going to go around every branch here, basically taking off this lower growth underneath, like these guys under here. Looking at that, that's a lower branch growing down. And this is just really just being very meticulous with each branch structure, and it helps kind of get me started in the process of deciding how much I'm taking off, what I'm going to trim. But this kind of cleans it up. If you're starting with a new procumbens, it's that, again, a pretty good place to start by trimming any lower branch foliage underneath the branches off. Before you make any structural cuts or anything, just get the lower stuff off, because that kind of opens up the canopy. And because junipers, procumbens are they're big sun lovers, the more canopy growth on top and underneath, the less sunlight gets into the interior. And these are creeping junipers. You'll get long extensions going out to the sun, minimizing any back budding inside this canopy if you do get any. So thinning it out regularly is very helpful to keep it healthy, and if there's any back budding that can occur, it has a better chance of doing that if you can thin out the pads. So that's all I'm going to do right now. I'm coming around looking for any tips that haven't really developed, like this guy. I did have a lot of wire on this tree last year, had every branch wired, which is why it's structurally in a pretty good place right now. I took all the wiring off in the spring, just before the growing season started, just to let this thing kind of go where it wanted to. And now this is what we're left with. And so again, a lot of this growth on the tips and ends, it's filled in tremendously. If I have a picture of what it looked like when I thinned it out, I'll put that up. I don't remember if I took a picture of it, but I will show you guys that. So anyway, I'm going to work through this. I don't want to bore you with these details, but when we come back, you'll see quite a difference in how much I've thinned this out. But just demonstrating to you, once I've cleaned out the lower branch of downward growing branches, then I'll start looking at the top structure, basically taking a branch like this and laying it in my hand and seeing what's coming up, like this branch is coming straight up, what's going out to the side, and then what's coming underneath it, and making some decisions as to what I pluck off. This top branch here it's a good branch. If I cut this bottom one off, it becomes the new leader. And what it also does do, it shortens our entire branch structure here, and this becomes the new leader. So that could be an option. But once again, I told you I was going to make some decisions on what I was going to do with this entire canopy here, because it is blocking the view of this gorgeous deadwood. So most likely we're going to be taking this off anyway. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. I just wanted to demonstrate that to you. A branch like this, it's kind of coming out to the side, but we got a lot of downward growth. So I will pluck these off like that. And then the extension of this branch, we don't have a lot going on back here. And what will happen is if we just continue to let this grow, it will just get longer and skinnier in the middle. So if anything, I would pluck some of the tips off the front that are growing. That might encourage some growth back here, and if not, I'd probably end up having to cut it off and trying to salvage this branch that's starting here, although that will take a long time to catch up. Alright, so we've thinned this out quite a bit. You can see definitely a lot of this foliage is gone now. I've cleared underneath. I've been trimming the tops down and kind of looking at the lateral growth. The biggest goal is trying to eliminate branches like this. Let's see if we can see that. But not bad, but there's a lot of dead growth inside here with the pom-pom tips, and that's what I don't want. Here's a better example. And this is what happens when you have a lot of growth over top of this, and then we get the tips on the growth. So anyway, I was eliminating a lot of these branches because we're starting to get a little bit more denser packs of padding here, of branch pads. But what I did was I had a big branch coming up the middle here, and it was poking straight up, and it kind of clouded this whole area. So I eliminated that. I actually made it a Jin, and you can kind of see it in there. I've got it wired down right here, It opens up the interior. It definitely gives you the flow of the deadwood feature, the shari with the live vein. I'm going to clean up the live veins too. And you're probably wondering why I have a paper towel up here, but I've got a wad of bush up here, and this branch is basically the live vein coming up. You see the live vein coming up, that branch on the outside, and it came up and it forked heading this way. You can see how it forked and it started growing over top of the deadwood, and it's actually, there's not deadwood, there's a live vein underneath that feeds that branch, and those two branches just don't look right together. So one of two things. I can lower it down to fill in the center here, but I like that open space. That's not an option I'd like to explore. The only other option I have is to try to bring this branch forward and down into this canopy here, but it's going to be pretty tough to bend it. I got this guy that can make up for some of the space it'll be taking out if I eliminate it. And that's what I was using this paper towel for. I was really kind of trying to decide if eliminating that whole thing, making it a deadwood or a Jin, would actually be better for the composition, or would it take it away? And that's basically what it would look like without it in there. Let me put that back in. It's pretty tight into that branch. So now you kind of get an idea somewhat what it looks like without it. I can get this branch to come up. It's a little bit higher on this branch here. I can get this to come up and fill some of this dead space in here, and also get some of this moving down into this direction, which is probably a better idea. It opens the canopy up here. I think that's the direction to go. Because of all this deadwood feature here, I definitely want that to be an emphasis. This bundle takes away from it, even if I thin it out, and it's laying up against this branch. It just doesn't look right. So I'm going to Jin it probably first. With that in there, you can see how thick it is in there. And in closer inspection, when you're looking at it, we've got these two branches going up. This one that's feeding that direction, and this one. They're both coming off the live vein, but I definitely think if I eliminate this, I'll force a lot more energy out to this pad, which is crucial to this composition. And I'm going to drop this down and bend it around. I had a branch down here that was lagging in vigor, so I decided to Jin that. Just sticking to the theme of this tree, which has a lot of deadwood features in it. But I'll get this down and wired in. It'll emphasize this. Maybe I'll wire that down a little bit. But I'm gonna probably give it a couple seconds of thought as to eliminating that, or just creating a nice deadwood feature with a Jin. But other than that, this is where we're at. I still have to figure out what I'm doing with this piece in the front, and it was the part that we were making a decision on. This is essentially the front. This gives us the best view of the trunk, the deadwood feature, the contrast, but this branch really clouds that. I do have a Jin underneath this coming out, and then it wraps over top and goes this direction. So using this method, which really helps you get a better visual of how things would look without branches before you make cuts. We'll see if we can get it to stay in place. That being the front, we definitely have the foliage out here that we need. And again, taking this off will probably give us a little more vigor to the outer branches, because this is a very vigorous branch out here, feeding a lot. It's a nice deadwood feature underneath here that I don't want to lose with the foliage. It definitely has to come off. I'm just deciding. You see all the branches. Definitely will be coming back to one of these. I'm either deciding to get it back to here and maybe bring this guy around a little bit, fill this in, or eliminate the whole branch down here. Eliminate this whole branch. I don't know if you can see too well. I've got it kind of tilted. This is the discussion. This branch, either we cut it here, and it still has some nice movement in the trunk or the branch, and it will emphasize this deadwood feature in the front, will be like the main piece of that front vision. Jin this and somehow bend it around or do something with it to make it look interesting with that piece there. I don't think we really need to, because it does have that nice deadwood feature underneath that it was so hidden from all the growth, I forgot to put lime sulfur on it because it has been dyed off. So I'll clean that up and do that eventually. But this being the front, you can see how if we lose this or eliminate this all the way back to here, kind of gives us a much better view of the tree itself. And I think that's the direction to go. I was either going to do it with that guy sticking out. So anyway, those are the decisions I'm working on right now. What to do with this lower one and what to do with this upper piece. Other than that, I'm going to have to throw some wire on a lot of these tertiary branches to get them to lay down and start. I already had a lot of wiring on the secondary branches, but now the tertiaries have gotten thicker and are going different directions. I just want to establish their pads a little bit better. I'll probably clean up a little bit more as we go along here, but those are the decisions I'm making right now. This next step, those two eliminations, and then some good wire on this to bring it down and around. I think what I'll probably do is start with wiring this upper pad. We're going to keep that. It'll give it that flow out to the side, nice flow out to here, and then it'll give me a better vision of what I can do with this branch, filling in the gap, and then also eliminating this section here, bringing this piece around the top. So that's what we'll be working on. All right, so we've gotten quite a bit accomplished on this tree. Did a lot. I took that branch off in front here. I left that as a Jin for now. We'll see if it looks better. I can always trim that up. I've got some Jin going on up top here. This little guy, this down branch, just to give it a little bit of deadwood throughout the tree features. That branch that we had up here, I Jinned that as well in the back. So from the back side, we have some deadwood features in the lower section. I actually spent some time and raffia'd this branch here because it is such a critical part of the structure and features of this composition that I didn't want to take a chance of wiring it pretty significantly and bending it and breaking anything, so I raffia'd it. But I think that came out good. I think the natural design is there. Mostly now I'm just gonna do some fine wiring on the tips, shorten things up a little bit. I still have that nice visual apex of the deadwood, but also the live apex here in the back. And that was kind of what I was looking for. I'm gonna clean this up. It's a little too late right now, but I'm gonna clean it up, do a little more fine wiring. This is gonna be wired out back here a little bit more into the back here. Figure out some other little things, just some little details, minor little wiring. But other than that, that's quite a significant difference from where we started and in the direction I was hoping to go. I'm also going to clean up this deadwood and live veins to kind of make them pop and the contrast with it. All the Jin I just created, we'll let that dry out for a couple months. Probably next spring we'll throw some sulfur on it, maybe sooner than that, but we'll see. It just needs to be dry or it's kind of a waste. But yeah, that's pretty much what we can do with junipers. This has been quite a few years of progress trying to shorten these branches that grew long because it was neglected, never really worked on. And so now we're getting that canopy to come back closer to the trunk. The deadwood feature really makes it unique, and so she's done now for at least the fall, other than just a little bit of wiring I need to do. But all right, well, there she is from a nice distance away. Looks pretty good. That's about the front right there, maybe pointed this way, but that's that front. And I didn't get time to work on the other juniper. It's been a long day working on just this guy, but I think we're in the right direction. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and stay tuned for some updates on all my trees I've been working on, some new stuff coming out. Take care. Cheers.